Alright guys, check out this before. This client came in and recently, about 2 weeks ago, she went darker. She was a dimensional blonde, about a level of 9 in some areas, but had some low lights throughout. She instantly regretted it and then started doing a partial highlight to start the process of her going blonder. So today she's wanting to lift out as much of that dark brown color in her hair as possible, kind of refreshing it, and it did lift a little uneven in certain areas. So we are mainly focusing on just trying to get everything nicely and blended and as bright as possible today. This is considered a color correction, so what we're going to be doing is mixing a few traditional highlights in with Teasey Lights just to go ahead and try to get an even canvas on everything, so the next time she wants to go a little bit lighter, in about 6 to 8 weeks it won't be as hard. Starting off on her hairline here, I'm just going to be doing a few diagonal backs, traditional highlights. They're still going to be pretty thin sections, but I'm just going to be blurring in where her natural color has grown out and just blurring it through that band that she has in her mid. We're not going to be touching those ends because those are kind of bright. We all know that the hairline is going to be the most fragile part on a client, since it's what they touch all day, so they fiddle with, they style these the most, and then we're going to be breaking it up and doing a few Teasy Lights, Teasy slices, and traditional highlights throughout the interior of her hair to go ahead and break it up and just make her hair even all over, since she just colored the top part the last time she went lighter. So previously she did have permanent color on her hair, and that instantly says run, because anytime someone has permanent color on their hair, it's going to be so hard to lift out. So that's exactly what I'm going through with Teasy Lights and traditional highlights, just because I want to try to see how her hair is going to lift. Whenever you're thinking about a Teasy Light, you're kind of teasing the hair up to create dimension and just to have a little bit of contrast so everything blends in very nicely. So what goes up must come back down. So if it does lift kind of an ugly, like brassy color or anything like that, as we calm that hair back down from the tease, it's going to have a better blend than it would with just going through and trying to baby light everything, because if she only lifts to like a 7 or 8, I don't want her to be orange everywhere. So you'll see here that I'm taking my subsection and kind of carving off, doing up and down kind of zigzag, more of a traditional weave pattern than I usually do, taking the hair and back combing it. Everything that is going to be back combed into this tease is what's going to create dimension, is going to be left out without being colored. Any brighter pieces that I see, taking them apart like you just saw there, and then we're just going to be saturating with our lightener from her mids to ends and then feathering up. I picked out those brighter pieces, so on the darker pieces and the more brassy pieces, we can let this lightener sit on as long as possible without damaging or compromising her hair. This is just going to ensure the health of her hair. We're also using Goldwell Oxycure with 20 volume and 1/16 of Olaplex. So that Olaplex is also going to be ensuring the integrity of her hair today, and then we're going to be switching it up from the foils that I usually use to something a little bit more sturdier and longer. So we're using the embossed sheets by Fraymar, and these are great anytime you're doing Teasy Lights or anything like that, because whenever I'm doing Teasy Lights, I don't like the hair to kind of be crumbled up in a foil or anything like that. I feel like it just keeps it a lot more even, and I can see how everywhere is lifting. Since she had that permanent color on her hair, her ends or her mids, or like it could be certain spots that lift a little bit uneven. However, if she does have an area that lifts a little bit slower or anything like that, all we have to do is tackle that by resaturating. So whenever I was foiling this part, I was like, fingers crossed she lifts pretty even, and you guys will just have to wait and see exactly how she lifted. After that Teasy Light, I'm going in straight with a traditional highlight, still keeping my sections thin, just a little bit more contrasted and not as tightly packed as my baby lights are if you've seen any of my other videos. And then what we're going to be doing is kind of rotating that Teasy Light, traditional highlight, Teasy Light, traditional highlight, and following that pattern. As you can see, I'm really being particular about this because I don't want to damage any of her pieces that did get fairly light the last session that she had going lighter. A little trick that I have is what you just saw me doing, is that's holding the hair very taut and then just going through the end of your weaving comb and picking out those blonde pieces, throwing them to the side, because there's no need to get those any lighter if they are going to be pretty light. Since we are dealing with permanent color in levels 5 and level 6s, I just want to ensure that she doesn't have any damage, because this lightener is probably going to have to sit on a little bit longer than it normally would if she was just a natural level 5 or a natural level 6. The reason being, this lightener has got to fight through all of that permanent color before it can even think about lifting her own natural color. So that's again why we're going through being a little more meticulous than usual, being a little bit more particular is for the health of her hair. That Olaplex is also going to be our best friend and kind of our insurance policy during something like this, because it's going to ensure the health of her hair. Olaplex is a bond builder, and I feel like all the times it gets a bad rap because people will say, oh, there's so many steps to doing Olaplex, but guess freaking what? Just using one of those steps is going to help ensure the integrity of your client's hair. You don't have to do all 7 steps or however many there are. I think there's 0. Actually, there's 6. Well, there's 7, but it's 0 through 6. But just ensuring doing like 1 or 2 of those steps within that Olaplex routine is going to help the health of her hair. And at the end of the day, we really kind of just want to focus on making sure her hair is as healthy as possible. But since her hair is going to be put through a lot more, multiple sessions going lighter until she achieves her goal and desired end result, which is probably going to take about 2 or 3 more sessions at most. Now we are switching it to the back of the head to the Katie cam. She is the one who is assisting me today. What we've got going on is the exact same thing, doing a traditional highlight and a Teasey light, and she is killing it. We are going to be packing these foils a little bit closer together, since the interior of her hair from basically her parietal bone down hasn't been touched with color. Like I said before, this canvas that we're working on just did a partial highlight to go lighter, so everything in the front's a little bit lighter, and then on top and the back is going to be a little bit lighter. So we're really trying to break up that interior of her hair. The reason that this is going to be amazing is because even if her hair in the interior doesn't lift as light as everything else that's up top that's already been processed one time, that's still going to give us a really lived-in, sun-kissed look. Because if you're thinking about it, someone that goes and lays on the beach is a little bit brighter around their face frame, up top, and then they have a little bit more depth on the interior of her hair. So if that does occur, if that ever does occur to you, what you can do is section off the lighter pieces, which is up top and up front, tone that with one thing, clip it away, and then tone the interior of her hair with something else since it's not as light, and then you don't have to deal with toning down the lighter pieces to match the darker pieces or vice versa. Now we are switching it back to the front where I am at, and we're going to focus on this money piece. I did save this for last since this is, like I said, the most fragile part of our hairline. What we were going to be doing is still using that 20 volume since we were putting it on last, and we are just going to be doing traditional highlights straight back. I'm going to be doing 2 traditional highlights and then feathering in a Teasy light just so it blends in with everything else, but we're going to be putting these a little bit closer together in the front than what we've been doing with everything else, and this is just going to help ensure that she has that brighter pop around her face. But transitioning these traditional highlights into these Teasy lights is what's going to help it give us that seamless blend where it flows in very nicely with everything else. So after I'm done with these last few foils, Katie's going to finish up in the back, and we did let her process for about 45 minutes. The front obviously lifted a little bit cleaner and nicer because she had previously had those highlights. So we are heating up just the back instead of sticking her whole head under the dryer, since her back just needs that little extra kick. We put heat on it for about 5 minutes, and then we let it sit 5 minutes, and it was awesome. Going into straight rooting now that she is processed, been washed one time to get rid of any impurities, any buildup, any lightener, everything that we can get rid of so we have a clean canvas to work on. We are now brushed her out, and I've put her hairline out, and we're going in with that root smudge. What I'm going to be doing is putting that a little bit further in the back, and as we get closer to her face frame and her hairline where those money pieces are at, we're going to not be dragging it down just as much. The formula that we're using is 6N and 6T in Redken Shades EQ because I just want to ensure that she really has that extra kick to kick out any of the warmth that's still left in her hair. That's why we're going in with 6T. Since what I usually would use is a 6NA, 6T is going to have a little bit more of a kick to it and it's going to get the job done. With processes like this, they are usually more lived-in looks. They are usually more of like a balayage kind of look, and that is going to be perfect for her since we have gotten her pretty light in this one session. So we are going to let this root sit on for about 15 minutes, and then right before that 15 minutes is up, I'm going to be mixing up her mid-toner. And so what we're using is 9P, 8GI, 9V, 8V, 8N, and 8T. And I know that seems like a lot, and sometimes people will look at me like you're freaking crazy for mixing all that up, but there's so many tones in her hair. I'm going to make sure that I'm counteracting and enhancing everything that she's got going on. Since it is a color correction, there's a lot of work to be done. The 9P, 9V, 8V, and 8T obviously is going to help counteract all the warmth that she had through lifting, since we had to lift through that permanent color and then the underlying pigment of her other hair, and then the other tones are going to help neutralize it so it doesn't go so ashy. Before I apply this toner, this root has sat on for 15 minutes. Like I said, we're going to go through, hit that hairline just so it stays a little bit brighter than the rest of her hair. The way that I like to do this is not bring it down as much. Like I was saying, we want to keep it brighter in the front, so we're just going to go through, shadow those down ever so slightly, and then we're going to immediately put her back after we've brushed this and blended it all through, and we're going to be applying that toner on her mids to ends so it can start processing, and then her front pieces won't be toned down too much. So I did use a barrier of Olaplex on her mids to ends since her root was going to be sitting on a little bit longer than I usually let it sit on, because I don't want to have any transfer from that root onto those light ends. And what I mean by that is Olaplex is going to be kind of doing a double whammy with this. I have it on her mids to ends. She's getting a treatment, but at the same time, it's a barrier so that root doesn't drag down and stain, since it is a level 6, a darker color than what she lifted to, and create any splotchy marks or anything like that. So I'm going to be rinsing that out while leaving her root on, and then just saturating with this mids and ends toner, working it through with my hands, kind of just watching it, playing it by eye. I don't want it to go too ashy. I don't want it to go too warm or anything like that. I'm just going to be playing it by eye. Whenever it looks scary, I'm going to leave it on a minute longer, and then I'm going to rinse it out of the hair. The reason that I'm going to be doing this is because I really want all those tones that are counteracting to soak in, and also those tones like the 8GI and the 8N to really soak in and enhance that as well. And there you have it. This is going to be our after. I am so pleased with the way this turned out, and so is my client here today. It is just a beautiful kind of warm tone blonde. It was great for going lighter for her first session. There's still a little bit of that dimension in there where we did the Teasey Lights, and I am just completely obsessed. You guys don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed watching it or if you learned something, and subscribe to my channel, and I will catch you guys on the next color tutorial.